Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from the WDET studios, Detroit's NPR station, sponsored by Ford Foundation and a content partner to bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens Davidson.
Y'all hear that voice?
Yeah, listen to me.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people on the east side of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. Also, there is a listener survey in the description of the podcast that we are asking you, our listeners, to take. We're hoping to get way more responses, so please click the link in the podcast description and complete our listener survey. Today, we are happy to welcome for the first time ever the legend herself, Satori Shakoor, to the show. Satori is the founder of the amazing Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers. She is the host of One Detroit Arts and Culture on Detroit Public Television. Satori is an accomplished artist, storyteller, actor, and comedian. She is a 2017 Kresge Literary Arts Fellow and one of our favorite Detroiters. Satori Shakoor, welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you. What a wonderful, glorious introduction. I feel lifted up and I can do no wrong in this interview.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. So forgive Donna and I if we just fan out in portions of the interview because we really are humongous fans of yours. Yes. And to have you here in the studio, coming through COVID, coming through all of the changes that we've experienced in our world, and we're able to be a recipient of your presence and your grace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Givens Davidson is back in the studio with us. She's back. We've missed you so much, Donna. First off, how are you? How are you doing?
Well, it's my second day back to work. And yesterday was hard, and today was better. So I'm doing well. You know, you upgraded.
You look good.
Oh, thank you.
I know she looked like TV on radio.
Thank you. I cut off all my hair, and it's a new me. Letting the gray grow out, but I'm good. You know, it's been rough, but it's also been good, and the amazing support of the team at ECN and you. Every time I listened to this show when I was away, the way that you just kept me present, even when I wasn't, really made me feel good. So I want to thank you and all the guests who also did that. So I'm really happy to be back in this upgraded space.
Oh, yeah, we upgraded while you were away.
I see, yeah. I was like, wait a minute. We sound different now.
At the beginning of last week's show, I was like, ooh, I sound like NPR. I got to talk a little bit more calmly, in my NPR voice.
Put people to sleep.
Satori, how is the day finding you?
Really good. I've had a wonderful day, walked in the good weather, walked around the old park track.
It's beautiful today.
It is. And yesterday, and I'm looking forward to all the days coming.
Yeah. All right, y'all. It is time for Hot Takes, where we run down some of the week's top headlines in the city of Detroit. For Hot Takes, could 3D housing be in Detroit's future? Donna, what say you?
Well, it's an interesting concept. We were just talking before we started recording that few of us really understand exactly what 3D printing is. It's like, okay, what does it mean to be able to construct something with a 3D printer? Mm-hmm. I know 3D printers can be expensive, but it's interesting to me because of the fact that housing is so expensive to construct. And people are living in such dire conditions that we've got to be innovative. I remember I was quoted not long ago. I think I made HRD in the city of Detroit angry because I said we needed to be more creative in our solutions, that we couldn't just keep on relying on the same old things and making the same old excuses while people are living without housing, while people are living in deplorable conditions, and we know they are. If housing is a human right, and I think HUD just said housing was a human right, then we've got to figure out a way to deliver on that responsibility. And if 3D housing works, I'd love to explore it more. It's going to be tested in Island View on the east side of Detroit. So I'm excited. I want to see what happens. I don't want to put construction workers out of jobs, but right now we have many more jobs than we have construction workers, and the cost of construction has gone way up. We were talking to somebody, I think the other day, and they said that, we think that some of this pricing is predatory. And, my
Yeah, it
response
was Mike Rafferty at
right,
New
Mike
Detroit.
Rafferty in New Detroit. And I said, well, isn't capitalism predatory? We need to find some alternatives. We need to create some competition for the existing building construction trade, which prices people out of housing. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about the possibilities and don't know what happens next.
So, Christine Ferretti authored this article for Bridge Detroit. Shout out to Christine Ferretti, our new associate editor at Bridge Detroit.
Right.
We're so happy to have her. Citing that there, of course, is a shortage all throughout the state of affordable housing, but it is exacerbated here in the city of Detroit. And a robotics company based in Southwest Detroit called Citizen Robotics is hoping and plans to pilot the very first 3D home in the city of Detroit as a mechanism to provide single-family affordable infill housing in neighborhoods. And last week, we had an interview with the planning director for the city of Detroit, Antoine Bryant. And I asked about single housing family strategy, single family housing strategy on part of the city. And it's lacking, I think, on part of the administration. So I'm wondering how the administration and other actors here locally in the city of Detroit will interact with this exploratory concept. I know this is something that Coleman Young II is very interested in piloting as well, but I don't know on the legislative side how much power they have to do that. But
No. They don't necessarily have the power to make the administration do that, but they certainly have leverage over approving things, over approvals for various things. And, I think that if city council stands together and says, let's try something new and let's prioritize housing families of the city of Detroit, we're building a bunch of single one bedrooms and, studio apartments in the city of Detroit. It feels like one great big growing dormitory, and families are priced out and are moving out because they cannot afford quality, affordable housing in our city. And that is inexcusable to me. I think that we have got to try to force from as citizens. I mean, that's what the purpose of democracy is, not to allow the government to tell you what they will do. It is to allow the citizens to demand what they do need. And so I think with the city council acting on at our behest, I know that Mary Sheffield is also very concerned about housing.
yeah.
I'm hoping that we can test this as one among many pilots for ways to produce affordable housing for families. And and many people do who listen to this show, that my priority is trying to figure out a way to reuse existing vacant homes for the purpose of housing low-income families, not just selling them to the highest bidder, but selling them in a way or rehabbing them in a way that makes it possible for low-income people to have family-sized
there are
homes.
enough structures here in the city that can help meet that shortfall.
When all is said and done, the city will have spent $1 billion demolishing homes. And that is looked at as a victory. But some of those homes that have been demolished at about $20,000 to $25,000 per
Average,
home
yep.
could have been rehabbed at about $50,000 to $75,000. And, every home that you save is a neighborhood that you help to maintain, a block that you help to maintain. And if you save it for a family that's low income, it's a family that you help to house. So we've got to stop the, hemorrhaging of housing through tax foreclosures, but we also have to come up with new mechanisms for providing new housing. I'm happy it's happening on the east side. I'm glad that MISTA is involved, and hopefully the city will find a way to use some of this ARPA funding to support innovation.
I was happy also to see that on part of the folks who are behind this pilot, that community engagement is not an afterthought. And the folks in Island View are very vocal. The folks in Island View are very engaged. And so it will be interesting to see how that goes. But speaking of, stopping the hemorrhaging of property tax foreclosure, next in Hot Takes, the city says that it can't repay overtaxed residents. This is an article by our new reporter at Bridge Detroit, Malachi Barrett. Shout out to you, Malachi. We just got, it's so
Bridge
fun.
Detroit is really, really, what's going on with you all? You are like telling us about all these new staff people.
Growing.
Fundraising has to be doing well with Bridge Detroit.
Growing.
And I know that's because you guys are doing such important work.
Yeah, it is important.
I say this as a content partner.
Thank you. And, I think the work is so important because we are literally uplifting the priorities that residents are telling us to uplift. And I think that's the way to do it. And that's the model that we are trying to pilot for the nation. for the nation. Residents telling us what's news, residents telling us what's important. And so, of course, this $600 million overtaxation is top of mind for a lot of residents that we speak with. And Detroit's top lawyer has said in his budget hearing a few days ago, his name is Chuck Rami, he's the acting corporation counsel.
I was going to say, isn't he interim?
Noted that the limitations that prevent the city from providing Detroiters with any direct payments or tax credits is against state law. And in order for something like that to happen, state law would have to change. Here is what I would say to that. I feel like the administration, when there are things that are put before them, where there are demands that are put before this administration that they don't want to adhere to, they find a way not to pay for it. They find a way not to do it. And my admonishment and my hope is that we will begin to find ways to do things that aren't always politically expedient. If state law has to change, nobody has more power in the state other than the governor, than the mayor of the city of Detroit, to go and lobby on residents' behalf in Lansing to get this law changed. There was no conversation about the administration and city officials having a legislative policy agenda to be able to compensate toward this demand that residents have to be paid back. There was a comment on our story that one of the residents who lost their home between this time period of 2010 and 2013 is still transient here in the city of Detroit. She's actually losing her current living situation now because the landlord has lost the house that she's in. This is a pervasive and persistent issue. And I want to hear people talk about what they're doing to provide respite, what they're doing to provide solution for residents, rather than telling residents this can't happen because it's cost prohibitive, or this can't happen because it is against the law. When something that the mayor wants, when something that the administration wants has all of these hurdles, they find a way to jump them. Well, and I am asking and I am admonishing people in this city to jump over some hurdles to provide relief for residents who are still so much hurt, so much loss here in the city as a result of tax foreclosures, property tax foreclosures.
Remember transformational brownfield tax credits?
Yeah.
Where the city and all of the developers went up to Lansing and said, hey, what we want the city to do is, in addition to giving us tax breaks, we want to be able to collect income tax and sales tax from people who use our facilities that we're building. In fact, the Dan Gilbert project that is happening in the Hudson site is being supported by transformational brownfield tax credits. And you cannot tell me this project will not help enrich him, because it will be the most expensive real estate in the city of Detroit. When the city decides they're going to do it, you and I were both at the Maxwell concert the other day, and that was really great. Listen, I loved that. It was a great concert.
It was great.
The most interesting thing, you didn't get there early, but I got there early. Were you at the concert? Okay, so they had Joe come on.
About that concert.
They had Joe come on. I was going to reach out. I was like, I know Orlando's going to be
Maxwell,
there.
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
So I was like, I'm not even asking. But anyway, so Joe goes out and Anthony Hamilton come out, and the set is like kind of weird. It's got these little things hanging down. I'm like, what the heck is that? And then it's Maxwell's turn. And at Maxwell came out, that set was on fire. He was on fire. He was great. When he came out, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
But parking is what I want to talk about, because you have all of these parking lots that have not been, retrofitted to manage stormwater in any kind of way. They're just concrete slabs that the city sold to the Illich family at a reduced price, right?
District Detroit.
And, I had to park a couple blocks away and only pay $15. But if I wanted to park in the garage, I'd have to pay $50 for that. And we're talking about a project that the city funded for them to own, and then overcharge us for parking, overcharge us for tickets, overcharge us for concessions. They figured out how to make money on top of money on top of money. So, in other words, the role of government is to help the rich get richer, but the role of government is not to help to relieve the impacts of poverty, because the people who lost their homes, and we have a complete loss of generational wealth. We're not even talking about an individual.
We're talking about
but generational
of the
wealth.
city's housing has been tax foreclosed upon in that period. Yeah.
And while we're talking about reparations, when you overcharge people and you took their home, you harmed them, and you harmed everybody else on that block. because their property lost value when that home was taken. There's no talk about how do we make people whole? How do we make Black people whole who had all of these losses? Because the people who are benefiting from so much of the public purse are not us. And that's intentional. That's structural. That's what structural racism is. And until we change that, we're going to keep on listening to the same old excuses. I, teach a class, and you know this, where we go back in the history of Detroit. And if you look back...
Where you teach at? Where you teach at now?
Columbia University.
At Columbia University.
And so if you go back 20 years, you go back 30 years, you go back 40 years, you go back a century, the arguments have not changed. White people never said, hey, we don't want Black people to have money. We're trying to exclude Black people. There were always other explanations around wealth building and wealth privilege and hoarding of resources that never got explicitly racialized. So when Black Bottom was cleared, it was slum clearance. We don't think people should have to live in slums. When we tore down almost all of the public housing in this nation, it was because we didn't think people should live in dilapidated public housing, forgetting the fact that this nation and its public policy created slums. This nation and its public policy created dilapidated public housing. So for me, this fits a bigger, it's a piece of a much bigger picture, and we've got to look at that.
Yes.
It's structural, and if you don't look at the structures that undergird that, we're going to keep on fighting the wrong people. As you know, every time I'm going to talk about financialization and the role that credit rating agencies and bondholders play in determining our public policy and housing policy in the city of Detroit. Bondholders don't prioritize keeping poor people in homes.
That's right.
Repaying people for, racist public policy and the stripping of their wealth. And until we can change and reduce the role of the bond rating agencies or educate them and hold them accountable for something different, we're going to keep on seeing this public policy reproduce no matter who is mayor and who is governor and who is president. Because it doesn't change from the presidency on down. You can like various presidents, but the economic policy of our nation continues to be the same. The housing policy continues to be the same. And we have a national crisis. Detroit is the tip of the iceberg. We got there first, and other people are following in our wake. So I'm disappointed and unsurprised that this is what they're saying. And it is one of the things that animates our continued fight at Eastside Community Network and really forces me into taking on all of these board roles and things to try to continue it on a bigger level, because I really think that we're going to have to push back.
Yeah, I should note that the City Council has earmarked $6 million to fund a property tax over assessment program for legacy Detroiters using the surplus dollars from the funds last year. But the funding, again, is not aimed at compensating residents, but instead, Mary Sheffield says it seeks to address the issue of overassessment. What that looks like, we don't know. So more to come on that. That wraps up Hot Takes. If you have pieces that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Satori Shakoor, we are tickled pink that we have the opportunity to speak with you for our feature discussion. Go ahead, what you playing, Donna? What you playing, Donna?
I'm sorry. If you don't know what that is, you don't know how excited I am to be here. If you are, somebody who was in high school in the late 70s and early 80s, then you understand the significance of this woman who not only founded the Society of Twisted Storytellers, Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers. I get the name twisted, but not only founded that, but when I was a teenager and so many other people, really was a forerunner in this music scene. And so I was on Facebook one day and they said she was a Bride of Funkenstein. I fell out my seat. I was like, no, I can't believe this. And I have wanted to meet you ever since, just to thank you.
I did not know y'all didn't know each other.
No, and to thank you for your contributions. You have no idea what that song meant to me, a young Black girl in Detroit, listening to Black women, playing music that meant a lot to Black people. And, I was a member of the Plymouth Church Youth Group, and this song closed out every party we had in the basement of Plymouth Church. So
the church party
in the church party. Listen, we had fun. We had great parties. I just want y'all to know, times have changed. Nobody would ever do it. We weren't we weren't drinking or anything like that. We were just dancing and having fun and listening to great music closed out by your music. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Very pleased to hear the issues. I'm excited about what you guys are doing with this podcast, which is shining a light on the stories and the issues that affect Black people, poor people, that don't have a voice, and looking for solutions to assist those people in coming up. Because as you said, all of this is by design, it's structural, and nothing's going to change unless it's changed. And so it's not surprising. It's very predictable. A design is predictable. You do this, it's going to look like that. I was talking to some people about what reparations would be, and this woman, she was very adamant, older Black woman. She says, "I think reparations is that Black people should never have to ever pay taxes in this country again." And I thought, wow, that would do it. Because we've been taxation without representation for forever, working for free. Why pay taxes on generational labor that you've already committed and are committed? How is it that you don't? I mean, that's irresponsible. It's not. There's a lack of accountability. Oh, oops! We overtaxed you. Don't have the money. Like who? We should send out our the people that dogged you. For you owe us. The people that call you up and try to get the money. I don't understand why we have to go through this whole thing about a law, because laws are hard to pass and for us.
Yes.
I mean, they give us concessions like the Crown Act and
but we can't get
Juneteenth, and we're supposed to go and have a
can't get
party
John
about
Lewis
that.
Voting Rights Act passed or the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
And I don't want everybody celebrating Juneteenth. I had to be honest with you. I really think some things are for us, okay? It was offensive to me. The last thing I think, if I don't want to drive up to McDonald's. I don't eat McDonald's, but if I did, I don't want to have Juneteenth burgers. I don't want any of that.
Target already was on it.
You're going to have a whole commercial line, and you're going to commercialize and commodify our pain, our history, and then sell it back to us. And then we got to pay a tax on that, a sales tax, 6%.
You're celebrating. What you're celebrating is the same thing is what you're talking about. Oops, we can't afford to pay you. Oops, we forgot. You've been free for 2 years. Let's celebrate that we got the news late. Hey, you know what I mean? No.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you always imagine that. I always imagine what would happen if people who lived in Grosse Pointe were overtaxed by $600 million. First of all, it wouldn't happen because they have attorneys and they have accountants. But let's say it did. Theoretically, it could happen. Okay, maybe there was some miscalculation somewhere along the line. There is no way in Hades that there would not be a rush at the State House to figure out how to correct that error.
What?
The fact is that, even with the tax foreclosures, right? We get into the procedural thing. When do people notify? When do they file for this? When do they file for that? This law has been on the books since 1999, and it has not changed yet. That's 23 years of gnashing our teeth and criticizing and trying to find workarounds to injustice. The reality is change the damn law. We do not need a law that provides accelerated tax foreclosure and forces people into a crisis every year. But we have payment plans. And the payment plans that are assessed and the rates of the payment plans, which are set by the state as well, are usurious in interest. If somebody sends you a credit card for 23% interest, you're being told, don't purchase that credit card. If you were trying to purchase a house at that rate or take out a bank loan at that rate, you're told no.
Predatory,
that's predatory. But you know what's not predatory? Our own government, right? Our own government, starting at the state law. And it's so, if we really wanted our mayor to go to the state and argue for a change to the law, that should have been first in line. And it didn't happen. And I believe it didn't happen in large measure because if he did that, Standard & Poor's would have a problem. If you listen to the state of the city, you heard him do a laundry list of everything he had accomplished over this past year. And at the very end of the state of the city, and I listen because I think it's important for me to try to understand the case that's being made, he said, our bond rating has increased for the 6th year in a row. And so, yes, everything you did was a recipe for that. And there's nothing on the bond rating form that says quality of life. There's nothing on there that says housing. There's nothing there. In fact, if what you're measuring and valuing is an increase in property values, housing affordability is a threat to that. If you're building affordable housing, you cannot escalate the cost of housing. But we're not looking at the social cost of that, not just in Detroit, but across the nation.
Yeah, it is. It's a big issue.
I applaud you. I applaud you for doing your due diligence, getting angry on behalf of me, because we could be angry a lot, but I like the way that you're approaching it and using that energy of anger to vocalize and to be an advocate.
A fierce one.
And a warrior.
Yes, a fierce advocate and warrior is Donna Givens.
Yeah.
If you read about her mother, you would know where she got it from. You know where she got it from.
If you read about my grandmother,
And
you
your
know where my
grandmother.
mother got
Who
it
is your
from.
mom?
Yeah.
My mother, Shirley McIntyre, passed away on March 19th, and that's why I'm just returning from bereavement leave, which is why I've been gone.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. But my mother was an artist. She graduated from Wayne State School of. She got her fine arts degree from Wayne State University when I was a kid, and then she got her social work degree when I was a kid. And she was a social worker. Her most significant job, the one that really, mattered so much, was she was the social worker for the AIDS Project. She helped to create the social work department for the AIDS Project in the Detroit Health Department. And through that, the AIDS Project started this organization, Community Health Awareness Group. And I started there, and my mother trained me and all of us in how to work with people with AIDS at a time we were stigmatized, at a time where people were dying very quickly. So she really helped set a tone. And she and Linda Campbell and all of the people that we worked with, Ron Turner was the director of CHAG, we called it CHAG. So many other people who were Ernie Griffiths, and I can't even think of all of the people, but it was like a close-knit family fighting together, and my mother helped set that stage. But my grandmother before her is a long-standing Detroiter, Cheever Hudson, and she was here in the 1920s, 1930s. Cheever Hudson is her maiden name, and that's the name she died with. My mother and grandmother took their maiden names back after they divorced their husbands. So Cheever Hudson, she was a firecracker. I mean, when I was a young adult, we had Angela Davis at our house, and we had Michael Moore at our house. She was hosting things. She worked with Irma Henderson and Marianne Mahaffey on the Women's Conference of Concerns. She took her students at Mumford High School on pilgrimages to Africa and taught Swahili at Mumford High School. So she was a trailblazer. I come from a line of matriarchs, women who really believed that you had to get in there and make a difference, and women who really loved other women and taught women to love themselves and our family. So anyway, one of the reasons I loved you when I was growing up is because you were a woman, and you were, because I was always like this feminist teenager, growing up in Detroit, fighting for women's rights. What about the girls? So I was never one I didn't have to make that transition. I was reared and birthed in that. But I love Detroit. I was raised in Detroit. I was born in Ann Arbor, raised in Detroit. And being raised in Detroit, just learned to love Detroit and its people and working in the communities in Detroit. One of the things that excites me about you is that you help Detroiters find their own voices, right? So it's not, like I try to provide a voice, but you teach people how to use their voices.
She showed.
So can you talk about that?
Yes, and first I'm going to put you on the spot and say, can you be on our June show?
When is it? What?
June 17th.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'll get all your
Oh my
information.
God, I gotta be
We'll go
there for
through
that. Oh man, that's gonna be amazing.
You too, Orlando. I got 2 spots.
You want me there?
Yes.
That'll be so much
The theme
fun.
is Lion Kings,
Lion Kings. Okay.
and you're a king
Thank you.
in that sense.
Yes, I accept
Fierce.
that. I accept that.
I'm in.
Yes. Okay, good. Okay, good. So I got my
Secret Society of Twisted Storyteller. So wait, I was supposed to be on. Listen, so we were planning
was
this
too
thing.
busy.
No, that was not what happened. COVID
what happened was-
Satori.
What
it was
happened
virtual.
was
COVID.
It was virtual.
And what we had to pivot. What ended up happening is we had to pivot and change the date. I changed jobs. And
Right before the pandemic.
right
he
before the
changed
pandemic.
jobs.
And then I got sick. That's what happened. It
Oh,
wasn't that
okay.
I was busy. I
Okay.
was sick. I was down.
I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, he was. He was one
Yeah.
of.
But I promise you I'd come back
You
for you.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
So,
was your
go-
question?
I just wanted to
Finding a
understand your
voice.
process.
Yeah,
You help
process.
people find
Oh.
their voice. And I think there's something beautiful about people finding their voice. I've seen some of my friends, tell stories in ways that are really moving. So can you talk about that?
Well, storytelling is the most effective delivery system of information and ideas. Storytelling is powerful. It's part of indigenous people's way of passing down history. And some history are stories and some are very, very accurate. But in terms of Detroit, where that came from was in 2012, Detroit was just starting to come back from emergency management, water shut off, lead poisoning, and everything that you described earlier on this show, all these attacks and burdens on the citizens of Detroit. I was just coming out of 6 years of grieving. I'd lost my mother and then 9 months later my son. 6 years of crawling, scratching back from hell. And when I looked around, I was alive and I wanted to be alive. And I looked around at Detroit and I'm living in a dilapidated neighborhood where the graffiti was the most beautiful and vibrant thing in the neighborhood. And I began to tell stories for the Moth. I was main stage Moth storyteller and host. And the first time I told the story of having lost my mother and
to
son
national acclaim. Let me just throw that in there, but go ahead.
was at the Fillmore. And I was terrified. I didn't know whether I could tell it. I didn't know whether I would break down. And I remember, what was the city council's president? Charles
Pugh.
Charles Pugh told a story out that same night on the same stage. And his chief of staff was there, Kay Bird. And she had just lost her son.
Yeah, K-Bird, yeah.
At like 4 months. And she says, I'm not where you are now. But listening to your story, I feel like I have hope that I can get there. And I began to see the value of storytelling and how your story, your lived experience can be a contribution. It could uplift. It could shift consciousness in 10 to 12 minutes. And so I said, I had this epiphany. Secret Side Twist Storytellers, get people.
That's how you got the name? You just it came to you?
The Secret Side Twisted Storytellers was a short story I had written some years before.
Okay.
And I wrote that short story because there was a story that I was too afraid to tell. So I had to create this fictional place to put the story. And it had a whole history of Galileo and how he was thrown in prison for defying the king, and I built this whole fantasy of this place called the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, where trusted people from around the world would meet every year at some undisclosed spot and tell stories that the rest of the world weren't ready to hear. So it was more of a sense of preserving thought, free thought. So I thought, Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers, people can tell their true, personal, intimate stories and make a difference. Because as soon as you tell your story, you create community in the wake of your words. Because people, I understand that. Oh my!
They see
there's
themselves.
They see themselves and they rush to you because you understand. Understand. So I knew that everybody had a story, and I knew everybody doesn't know how to tell their story. Because if you've ever just listened, well,
you got to tell the stories the right way.
Yeah,
Yes.
tell the story. It's not the craft. Sometimes it's that the craft is missing for people. They don't know the craft. Other times it's that I'm afraid to unzip, to be vulnerable, to tell my truth. I'm afraid to be judged. So you have to work with people wherever they are, like, oh, no, I know you're afraid to say that, or I can't say that, but we know what happened at the end. I had a woman, she was a fantastic storyteller. She had murdered her boyfriend and was getting away with it, but felt guilty, so she turned herself in, and then she was sentenced to prison for 30 years, and when she counted the number, I'm going to be 54 when I get out, and she guilt drove her there, but it wasn't so much the murder, was what she did in prison for the women in prison, and that she came out and now she's she's working with young women who are on the streets and maybe pregnant or they need housing. And so it's not the things you do, it's what you do for other people. And it starts with simply sharing your life, sharing your experience. Because in sharing my story, I got emails from all over the world. And people take from your story things that you're telling the story for this reason or for and they pick something over here and it went shh, because everyone's coming and bringing a certain listening with them. I'm listening for hope. I'm listening for humor. I'm listening, and then they take it like it's a work of art. And so they take what they need from the story. And as I began to work with storytellers, I began to feel so blessed by the fact that, I can get into people's lives. I can be nosy. Not nosy to be gossipy, but nosy so that I can point out how great you are, your magnificence, how powerful and courageous. I'm working with young women. I'm working with a bunch of young mothers, and I'm working with some state organizations, to impact the maternal mortality rate in the state of Michigan. And so the stories I hear these young women tell are phenomenal. They don't even recognize their courage, and so I'm working with them to tell their stories so they can talk to health. People in the health field, doulas, other mothers, because they were giving birth during COVID. And so what they want to do is prepare women of color, Black women who go into these health systems
and aren't heard.
and not heard and are in implicit bias, and they look at you and go, "Oh, you're Black, you can pretty much squat and have your baby in the field, so you're not going to get the." They don't mean to think that. It's not even that it's conscious. It's just stereotype, and you're attached to it. And I'm going to treat you according to this lens that I'm seeing you through, and you can't really. You can't change that in that person, but what you can do is know I'm going up against that. So have an advocate, have a doula, have the right person with you. It might not be the baby's father or your husband because he might faint at the sight of blood. It might not be your mother because she might not know. You know what I mean? So it's like now that I'm seeing that working with storytellers and working with the craft and learning that, I know how to teach people how to tell their stories, and it's fun, and that's my purpose, that people get a chance to make an impact. You know what I mean? That there's a service in this that I'm doing so that those stories can get told, people can hear them, they can be compelled by them. It can be entertaining, but also informational. So I created a stage so that people can get up and basically accept themselves in public and have people give them a standing ovation.
Accept themselves in public.
Exactly. That's what you're doing. You're saying, I'm going to weather whatever judgment. I'm going to come out, because I can see when the storyteller first go up there, they're nervous. And then when they shift their weight to the other foot, it's on.
Let me ask you this, Satori, because this is really interesting to me, and I love that you said accept yourselves in public. In the beginning of your answer, you began to lay out City of Detroit landscape in 2012. And we had been the whipping boy on part of national media and local media, residents toward the decline of Detroit. Residents were to blame for the decline of Detroit, and we weren't really feeling good in that time. I think we were in active trauma. We weren't feeling good about ourselves. And so talk about the need to provide a stage for Detroiters to accept themselves at that particular time, because it was a crucial time.
At that time, I just, this has grown, and I've grown with it. But initially, it was people coming out to tell their stories. Some like we had Pastor Bill Wiley Kellerman. We had a bunch of water warriors come tell a story of water shutoffs and what people going to prison being. I wanted to show the people who came to the shows and the videos we produced. I wanted the people to know that we're not sitting down taking this. There's people out here doing warrior work. I forgot one of our storytellers. She told her story. Remember the water warrior? She died in New York.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh,
Yes.
yeah.
Hicks.
Charity Hicks.
Charity
Hicks.
Hicks. Yes. So Bill told her story, but then I can't think of the other storyteller we had that she was very influenced by and inspired by. So we get a chance to hear about other Detroiters through the eyes of other Detroiters, and how we love each other in this city and that we're not laying down, and we have never laid down in the city of Detroit. I was born and raised in Detroit, East Side.
Come on. I love it.
So I was a Black Panther. I've been
I
in
don't
this.
think I knew that about you, Satori Shakoor.
They don't really talk about the women that were in the Black Panther. It's like they don't. I wasn't in the Black Panthers long. I was more up in the rallies, singing in the rallies. And when I came home one day after they opened fire on one of the offices on Mack Avenue, I came home and I told my mother, and she said, "You ain't staying. I'm sorry, you done with that black stuff. You no more black. Honey, you ain't going up on Mack Avenue no more." And so,
listen, I was reading.
Spit on my water.
I was reading your bio, right?
Yeah.
Just after I found out, long before now, when I found out that you created the Brides of Funkenstein, and you were a child prodigy, right?
no, I was not a child.
You were not?
Okay.
Okay.
I was an artist that didn't know she was an artist, and I was fascinated by everything that I was exposed to, like most kids. But I started playing violin in the second and third grade. So by the time I got to Cass Tech and did orchestra, I was professional. I was playing on Motown.
Well, that's
records.
what I call
That's
a child
a prodigy.
prodigy.
Come on,
Okay.
Satori.
No, I was.
Come on.
Well,
I just loved and
But
practiced.
that okay. So I
so
love
humble.
your humility.
She's so
I
humble.
love your humility because I was like, dang. I was reading your biography and all of your education. I mean, you are really a person who has so many gifts
So many.
yourself,
So
and
many.
and you've used them all differently, which I think is really cool. That you have at different parts of your life. I can't let this go. I need to know how you became a singer in the Brides of Funkenstein.
And talk about what that stint with them did for you in your career.
Oh my God, you guys. Okay, so when I went to college, when I went to Michigan State, I majored in voice. I wanted to sing, and I would put on Gino Vanelli records.
Ooh.
And the live ones
Mama
where
Coco.
when you hear the applause and everything, and I would imagine that I was singing and I was, and so I went to New York to record an album, which I did record the album, but the producer made off with the money and the tracks. And so there I am in New York, and I didn't want to come back to Detroit. This is New York. I'm auditioning for Broadway. And my friend Overton Lloyd, who did the album covers for P-Funk, said they're auditioning for this new group in Detroit called the Brides. And I was a jazz person. I was a snob. I'm jazz, classical. I'm classic. So he had come by to pick me up to go to Madison Square Gardens. I wasn't there because I worked at Dunkin' Donuts from 6 to midnight. And he left Funkentelechy versus the Placebo Syndrome. I never opened up the album, but once I knew I was going to have that audition, I tore the cellophane off, put the album on, and went nuts. I couldn't believe the musicianship because I hadn't met Bernie Worrell yet, who's Juilliard. I hadn't met Junie Schoon, who was talk about prodigies. These are the prodigies. I hadn't met Gary Scheider, I hadn't met Bootsy George. I hadn't met any of those, but I heard this was the Black experience. From Juilliard to Gut Bucket, Georgia, picking the guitar, Gut Bucket, Georgia, and all of it came together to be amazing. So I flew back to Detroit, borrowed the money, flew back to Detroit. They had hired somebody already. So I was going, before I left, Dawn got my dress size, shoe size, and said, if this girl doesn't work out, we're going to call you. Now I'll go back to New York. I'm working at a New York discotheque. and they called me and said, hey, can you come to Detroit? We're hiring you. And so I walked into Maurice's office. I said, I've just been hired by the biggest Black rock group in the world. He said, that's great. When are you leaving? I said, now. You can't leave now. You have to order that Rolls Royce for me. Because these guys, they were just, they bought a disco. They were rich. And I came back to Detroit. They picked me up from the airport. They had the One Nation scarves and the tour jackets, and they picked me up. They looked like aliens, took me to the rehearsal hall, and it looked like a orchestra. It's huge, all these musicians. And 1 week later, I'm standing in front of 10,000 people on stage in Pittsburgh. We've played Madison Square Gardens. We went to Europe. We played Germany, France,
Oh my gosh.
England, Amsterdam. We played everything, all the 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 seaters. We played the Pontiac Silverdome, the Cotton Bowl, the Los Angeles, 80,000 people. And when you walk on stage in front of 80,000 people, it's like you've drank 17,000 cups of coffee. It's so if the audience is less than 80,000, I'm not intimidated. I'm just not.
That's a flex.
Yeah, but George was a genius. There was a bunch of geniuses there, and George loved what people would think of as mistakes. George looked at mistakes as creative opportunities. So people were always trying to compete to get on the record, and all of those things. That was a mistake. Wow. All of the sayings and the things you hear and repeat.
Because that's what made the music so
yes.
amazing to me, was all of those ad-libs, right? Oh, my goodness, yes.
And George, I would get upset that he wouldn't use my singing voice. He would always want to use my speaking voice. He would say, "Go, talk like this, talk like you're an old lady." And he would use my voice, and I didn't know my voice could do those things. I thought I was there to sing, and he was there to use me.
Can you sample a little bit for us?
I did sing, but I was also did character voices.
Right. So can you do that?
Well, on Electric Cuties, I while the music was playing, Atomic Dog, all these records where when George ordered pizzas, we knew we had a hit because we're going to be in the studio all night. We wanted to be in the studio all night. But anyway, so on Electric Cuties, right, the music was going, and I kept hearing, "This so mad." And he played knick-knack all night long with a church kilowatt. Can he find a fuse? And so I went over to George and I said, "George, this so mad." He said, "Go out there, put it on the thing." So there I am. Yeah. It's just little thing, you would have the opportunity was there to create. I've done some documentaries, and then Mike Judge, who did Beavis and Butthead, he contacted me, and we recorded right at United Sound Studios, and he animated us. So it's called Tales from the Tour Bus on Cinemax. So check it out. It's all animated.
I will. Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
You
it's
on
funny.
Cinemax right now? She's so
Tales from the Tour Bus, the funk season 2.
All right.
So but it was I would say that experience trained me because I was at the top. I mean, you play Madison Square Gardens, everything else is. So I was like Paris Hilton. What's a washing machine? Do you have? It's like, do you have a roadies? Roadies? What is this girl talking about? Roadies? Oh, where's the? This is, and I had to learn. And then when I started doing theater, musical theater, the actresses would come off stage and says, "The audience is terrible." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" George said that if we went to Atlanta to play the Fox Theater, it's 5,000 people, but sometimes people didn't believe we were coming. So we go straight off the bus into the radio station, say, "We're here," and then people buy the tickets. Well, that night, it didn't get word, the publicity didn't get out. He came on the radio, 500 people show up at the Fox. George is backstage, and he says, You're gonna have to give them the show of life. Better, we're gonna rock longer, harder, because they came. So I learned that it don't matter who show up, how many, you give them everything. And because they showed up, give them more than what they funking for. That's why you hear more than what you're funking for. Because that's what you should do in life.
Oh, my goodness.
He was like a philosopher. People say, "Well, what's your fee?" You give them your fee, and then you give them more. You give them more. Because that's
abundance.
just, you give them more than
give them abundance.
Everything. Because it's
and you show up like that.
And I was
going to
say that's what you're doing.
I've taken it.
You've taken that, and that's what you do. And
serve.
I want to go back to what you talked about, storytelling being a service, right?
It is community.
If you ask people in the city of Detroit, on the east side of Detroit, what is the best part of the east side of Detroit, you always hear the people. if you are not part of our community, that would never be your guest, right? Because people don't know the people. People have all of the stereotypes. I hear so many jokes, negative comments about the East Side from people, who are West Siders. It's like, have you been to your neighborhood lately? Okay, as you're talking about the East Side, just the arrogance and this kind of thing that we do. But the people that we work with, the people in our community, are the best people in the world. Honestly, the best people. I love my job, and I love our community. There's always a wonderful person who's done things that are unimaginable, who are living there, and they don't have their stories told, and they can't tell their stories. And I thought, wouldn't it be harder to take somebody's home if you knew who lived in that home and you understood those were people? If you really understood that these people have the same hopes and dreams and gifts, would it be harder to tear apart a neighborhood if you understood those things? And so one of the things that we're trying to do at our new hub that we've created in the community, which is the Staudenmeyer Wellness Hub, so named after Marlo, in honor of Marlo Staudenmeyer, but it is bringing people together, and the whole goal is to bring people together for the 9 dimensions of wellness. And we ask people, what kinds of things would you like, what activities, we did a survey, what activities would you like to see? And storytelling is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to ask you to come and do some workshops. We have some support for that. Listen, I reciprocate.
That's what I do.
That's right.
I reciprocate. So
I got y'all on my show, and this is done.
Exactly. So you got us. You came here. We're going there. Yeah. But we really do need you to help. I think it's important for people to understand the power of storytelling, to learn, and people are excited about the opportunity to learn how to speak and to tell their truth.
Yes.
The urgency of the griot. I'm always talking about it. Tori and I had this conversation. So,
because a headline isn't enough. A headline, a statistic.
You better say that.
Because a statistic is a story about a whole lot of people having the same experience or not. And so when you get into the statistics, then there's Donna,
there are people. Yes,
there's Orlando.
Yes.
And I know her, and I know that that her house was overpriced. Now she's on the street. It's human.
Right.
This is human.
Yeah. I want to ask you this question, and I can't wait to hear you talk about it. The amazing Christy McDonald recently departed from Detroit Public Television, to the dismay of a lot of viewers. We love Christy McDonald. But we felt nothing but exuberance when we heard that you were joining the One Detroit team to host Arts and Culture.
Wow.
How did it happen, and how is it going? We want you to tell the listeners where they can watch you on television. And, of course, we want to pub the next Storyteller show. But talk about your work with Detroit Public Television real quick.
Oh, yeah, Detroit Public Television. I host Detroit Performs Live from Mary Grove. That's Wednesdays at 7:30. And One Detroit Arts and Culture is Monday at 7:30. So it's 2 shows that I'm hosting for Detroit Public Television. How did it happen? Well, when we first started the Secret Society Twisted Storytellers, the whole board went over to DPTV because my vision was, let's have it on television. This would be so great to have it on television. And the budgets and the timing and everything wasn't working. So, I had this relationship, Rich Homburg and all. But I did American Black Journal. Apparently, that's what happened. I did 50 years American Black Journal at the Garden Theater.
I was there.
Oh, okay. So I did my story around Trayvon Martin, which was actually a song. And so I get a call from Ed Moore, who's the executive producer over at DPTV, and said, Satori, do you have time to talk? Yeah. Well, I was wondering, would you like to host Detroit Performs Live? Yeah, I'll tell you what it is. And I said, sure. And then he asked, could I do One Detroit, and Rich Homburg has a whole lot of, dreams for this show.
Yes,
it's his baby and stuff. Yeah. So I said, oh yeah, sure, I'll do it. So that's how they asked me, and I said yes, because I'm an artist. I love artists, and I know most of the people that they bring onto the show. But what makes it so great is that I get to say things like, "Well, you left out the Millender Center." Well, what do you mean? It was part of the landscape, part of the skyline. And the reason and so they Googled it. Oh, yeah, it was such a thing. I said, because Patricia Millinger told a story on our show and told about the difficulties trying to keep that building and her father and everything, structural design, racism, right? So I hear these stories from the storytellers over the last 10 years, and it's like then I can say, oh, well, isn't arts and culture fashion part of that? They go, yeah. I said, well, what if I find some of the designers around Detroit and we can run their in the credit how about if we go over to Burt's? It's the oldest jazz city, jazz club in the city. So for me, it's like, okay, well, if we're going to do Detroit arts and cultures, this is my world.
Right.
That you get to curate.
Yeah, I get to curate. Don't you? Yes. Here's where I hang out.
Detroit as we see it, right?
Yeah, and the symphony is great. The Scarab Club is great. All of this is great. But you heard?
You have produced.
Have you heard about the K-Rod Gallery over there?
That's awesome.
Producing power. I love it.
That's awesome. And that's just another way of telling our stories and making us visible
Yeah.
to the people who are interested in Detroit, so that we don't whitewash our history or, displace our, heritage. And so...
And they're thrilled, the people over at the Hannon Center, when they see that segment just aired, I think, yesterday. And they see their art on the wall, they see their center, they see people telling their story, showcasing their story. They're like, oh, and they're all on Facebook. Oh, my God, I'm going to watch now. Because when something has something to do with you, then you're going to support it. If it don't have anything to do with you, you kind of ignore it. So
I love it.
And this is one of the goals of Detroit Public Television, to their credit. They want to expand. They're one of their missions
there.
is
I'm on
to
there.
Yeah, they really want to open it up and give exposure to people who may not have been given that kind of exposure. So that's to their credit. So a shout out to Ed Moore, Rich Homburg, and all the folks over at
Tell the folks where they can when and where they can watch your show.
Okay, so you can watch One Detroit 7:30s on Monday on PBS, Channel 56 in Detroit, or on demand if you go to the website. And Detroit performs live from Marygrove, where you see performances and then you get insights into the artist's stories. And that's Wednesdays at 7:30. I just shot the first 5 episodes of our new season.
Do you have live audiences for those?
No, but I was talking to Rich. Let's have some live audiences, going forward now that we're coming out of COVID. That would be great because, the performances, I get to sit there with the camera people and just rock out. Yeah. So we had Detroit Youth Choir.
They're
right there in Marygrove.
We had so many great performances.
Everybody's over there, huh?
Everybody's over there, and it's
so
because
shady.
they're going to be like a arts hub, like an art hub. And so you can watch that. But come this Friday, I don't know when this is going to air.
It's airing tomorrow. So we record on Tuesday nights. The episode premieres Wednesdays.
Okay. So Detroit, you've got to come out to Marygrove Theater Friday, April 15th, showtime 7:30. The Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers presents Testify. We got 4 fire-breathing dragon men that are bringing out stories that they're testifying to.
Oh, wow.
We have Dr. Eddie Connor.
Eddie's a friend of mine. You met Eddie, Donna, at the election watch party, remember?
Yes.
The White Stackhouse.
Yeah.
Pastor Darrell Jones, Pastor Edward Knox. And Darrell Jones is a horseman. He owns 9 horses. And he's part of the Buffalo Soldiers, and he has an amazing. All of the stories are just off the hook. But
where do they go to get the tickets?
You go to twistedtellers.org. Just hit show button, and it'll take you $20. The tickets are $20. You can only buy them.
And they sell out, so y'all better go ahead.
Yeah, you can only get the tickets online because we're trying to mitigate COVID and
So you're at Marygrove now.
Marygrove Theater, we love it over there. We're just trying to work out some logistics because we had that big space in the Wright Museum where we had vendors and place for people to go. Marygrove doesn't have a big lobby area, so we're working all of that out. But our first inaugural show was March 25th, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to Friday night and gathering again for Testify. We're going to skip May because all
We'll
of those.
see you in June.
In June.
June 17th. Donna and I will be there.
They're going to be on stage, people. They're going to be telling the stories of how you can tell your stories. You might get a whole bunch of journalists that night.
Satori Shakoor,
Yes,
thank you
sir.
for saying yes.
Oh,
it is
yes.
always an honor. Donna now knows what I talk about, but it's a privilege to be a recipient of your presence and
Thank
your vibe and
you.
your
Thank
aura.
you making me feel good.
Absolutely.
All right. If you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. It is time for shout outs. Donna Givens Davidson, do you have any shout outs?
I do.
Okay.
Okay. I want to shout out Darnell Adams at the Gilbert Family Foundation.
One of my best friends in the world.
And one of our board members
Yeah.
at Eastside Community Network for the outstanding work he's doing, putting forward an equity agenda and using the resources that he has there to really equip and empower people in our communities. I want to thank my former staff at Vanguard Community Development Corporation. I'm going to name a couple of them. Dorothea Sharon for organizing it, Scott Allen Davis, Crystal, oh my goodness, Crystal. Oh my goodness, I'm having a
Just
brain freeze. Crystal and Lottie.
Okay.
For coming over. They've sent a catered meal to my home, so I'm leaving here and I'm going home to a catered meal
Love it.
as they support me in my bereavement. It's going to be so great to have our reunion today.
Yeah. Satori Shakoor, do you have any shout outs?
I'm shouting out the production team for the Twisted Storytellers, shouting out the production team for DPTV and the two shows that I host over there, shouting out the east side of
Yes,
Detroit.
you better.
Shouting out my husband, Claudie B. Jefferson Jr., and I'm just shouting out life.
Yeah.
Glad to be vibrant and alive. I look forward to today because I didn't have to do anything, didn't have to get dressed up, didn't have to put on no lipstick or deodorant. No, I did that. But I could come here and just kick it, and that's one of my favorite things to do.
Thank you for coming. I want to shout out the folks at Urban Consulate. It's another platform that I'm on. I know y'all like, we see you everywhere. I'm headed to New Orleans this weekend to film for Urban Consulate, and one of the things that I'm really, really excited about, I told my paternal grandmother that I was going, and she said, "You're going home." And I didn't realize I had so much family, so much blood in the soil of New Orleans. And so being able to go to New Orleans and tell stories and amplify stories, but also get a piece of my story and own that, I am super excited about it. So shout out to the Urban Consulate doing amazing work. Check out our confidential series too. In Next City, we have a conversation coming out with Candace Fortman. You know Candace.
Yes.
I went one-on-one with Candace Fortman, and Candace Fortman and I are friends, right? And so every time we get together, we have like these amazing and divine conversations where we like bare our souls, and it's so vulnerable, and we always cry. And I told her when we sat across the table, I said, "I'm not crying on television tonight." And I kept my word, but she did not. So you gotta watch it when it comes out.
When's it coming out?
Probably in a week and a half on
Okay.
Next City, but we'll let you know. Until then, everybody, we thank you so much.
I do have to
You got another one?
correction. No,
Okay.
I want to say Dr. Crystal Eason.
Oh, you
that's
better
my
say
girl.
doctor.
Yes, that's my girl.
She worked hard for
way
that.
back. She sure did. I mean, she became a doctor after we worked together, and she's doing great things all across this nation around mental health. So Dr. Crystal Eason and Lottie Spady, my two friends.
Oh, we love
joined me.
Lottie Spady. Yeah.
Yes, we
I got
do.
to meet
So
her.
super excited to see my friends. I just wanted to get Crystal's name right.
Awesome.
All
Awesome.
right.
Thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, we want you to catch the wave.